Have you ever come home from a trip and felt strangely disappointed by how you felt afterwards? Not because the destination was bad, not because anything went wrong. In fact, everything may have looked perfect from the outside. The hotel was beautiful, the weather was good, you visited places you had always wanted to see, you took photographs that looked exactly like the ones you imagined before leaving, and yet, a few days after returning home, you felt tired, overstimulated, emotionally flat, or somehow less energized than before you left. Instead of feeling restored, you felt as though you needed another vacation just to recover from the vacation you had already taken. Most people assume this happens because they didn't take enough time off. They think they should have stayed longer, chosen a better hotel, booked a nicer flight, or planned more relaxing activities. But for many sensitive people, highly intelligent people, and women with ADHD over 40, the problem often lies somewhere else entirely. The problem is that most travel advice is designed around excitement, while the nervous system is often looking for restoration. Those are not the same thing. In fact, they can sometimes be complete opposites. And this may be the single biggest travel mistake sensitive people keep making without even realizing it. One of the reasons this happens is that modern travel culture celebrates stimulation. Everywhere we look, we are encouraged to see more, do more, experience more, and fit as much as possible into every trip. Travel blogs, social media feeds, and guidebooks are filled with lists of must-see attractions, hidden gems, famous restaurants, scenic viewpoints, and packed itineraries. The underlying message is that a successful trip is a trip filled with activity. If you are not constantly exploring, discovering, and checking things off your list, it can almost feel as if you are wasting your time. But the nervous system experiences travel very differently. It does not care how many attractions you visited or how many photographs you posted. It responds to stimulation, recovery, safety, predictability, and energy expenditure. Many women with sensitive nervous systems spend their entire year managing a high level of cognitive and emotional load. They are juggling responsibilities, processing information, making decisions, caring for other people, managing work demands, navigating hormonal changes, and trying to stay functional in an increasingly noisy and demanding world. By the time vacation arrives, they are often carrying a level of nervous system fatigue that they do not fully recognize. They know they are tired, but they assume a change of scenery will automatically solve the problem. Unfortunately, travel itself can become another source of stimulation if it is not designed with the nervous system in mind. What many people do not realize is that every environment places demands on the brain. A crowded airport demands attention, a busy city demands attention, a complicated train station demands attention, a hotel check-in process demands attention, navigating unfamiliar streets demands attention, reading maps, making decisions, filtering noise, adjusting to different schedules, understanding local customs, and constantly orienting yourself in a new environment all require energy. Individually, none of these tasks seem significant. Together, they create a substantial cognitive load that the brain must process throughout the day. For highly sensitive people and ADHD minds, this load is often much larger than it appears. Many ADHD adults are already using enormous amounts of mental energy to regulate attention, manage overwhelm, and organize information. When you place that nervous system into a highly stimulating environment, the brain may initially respond with excitement. New places often create a surge of dopamine. Everything feels interesting. Everything feels engaging. Everything feels full of possibility. But dopamine can sometimes disguise exhaustion. During the first few days of a trip, you may feel energized by novelty. The fatigue often arrives later. It appears when the nervous system finally begins to register the true cost of maintaining that level of stimulation. This is why so many sensitive people make a critical mistake when choosing where to travel. They choose destinations based on beauty, popularity, or excitement rather than nervous system compatibility. A destination can be stunning and still be exhausting. A city can be world famous and still be overwhelming. A place can look magical on Instagram while quietly draining your energy every single day. Beauty and restoration are not the same thing. We often assume they are, but they are completely different experiences. Beauty creates admiration. Restoration creates relief. Beauty makes you say, "This place is incredible." Restoration makes you say, "I can finally breathe." The distinction becomes even more important after 40. Many women notice that their relationship with travel begins to change during midlife. Places they once loved start to feel more demanding. Long travel days become harder to recover from. Crowded environments feel louder. Poor sleep has a greater impact. Constant activity becomes less appealing. This is not a sign that something is wrong. It is often a sign that the nervous system is becoming more honest. The body becomes less willing to ignore overload. It starts asking for something different, not necessarily less adventure, but more balance. One of the biggest contributors to travel exhaustion is pace. Most people dramatically underestimate how exhausting transitions can be. Moving between hotels, catching trains, navigating airports, checking schedules, and adapting to new surroundings all require mental resources. Sensitive travelers often assume they are tired because of the destination itself, when the real problem is the number of transitions built into the trip. Every time you move to a new place, the brain has to reorient itself. Where is everything? What is the routine? How does transportation work? Where can I eat? Where do I feel safe? These questions may seem small, but the brain processes them constantly. This is one reason why many people return from multi-city trips feeling exhausted. On paper, the vacation looks incredible. 5 cities in 10 days, countless landmarks, endless experiences. Yet the nervous system never has a chance to settle. It remains in a state of continuous adaptation. Instead of moving toward recovery, it stays in a low-level state of alertness. The result is a trip that feels exciting while you are there, but strangely draining when you come home. Another mistake sensitive travelers make is planning around fantasy rather than reality. We often imagine ourselves enjoying experiences that do not actually suit our nervous systems. We picture ourselves thriving in crowded city centers, busy resorts, packed tourist attractions, and highly social environments because that is what travel is supposed to look like. But there is a difference between enjoying something briefly and thriving within it. Many people can tolerate highly stimulating environments for a few hours. Living in them for several days is a different experience entirely. This is where understanding your sensory profile becomes incredibly valuable. Every nervous system has different sensitivities. Some people are highly affected by noise. Others are affected by crowds. Some are sensitive to visual clutter. Others struggle with constant social interaction. The problem is that most travel planning ignores these factors completely. We choose destinations based on activities rather than sensory conditions. Yet sensory conditions often determine how we actually feel during the trip. Imagine 2 equally beautiful destinations. One is filled with traffic, crowds, nightlife, constant movement, and endless choices. The other offers open space, slower rhythms, nature, quiet evenings, and fewer demands. Both may be wonderful places, but they create completely different nervous system experiences. The second destination often allows the body to downshift. Breathing becomes deeper. Sleep improves. Mental noise decreases. The constant background vigilance begins to fade. Many people describe this sensation as feeling like themselves again. What they are experiencing is regulation. The truth is that recovery does not happen simply because we are away from home. Recovery happens when the nervous system experiences the conditions required for recovery. Nature is one of the most powerful examples. Research consistently shows that natural environments reduce stress, improve attention, and support emotional regulation. Yet many travelers spend thousands of euros visiting destinations where they are surrounded by more stimulation than they experience in daily life. Then they wonder why they return home exhausted. One of the most important shifts you can make is moving from destination-centered travel to nervous system-centered travel. Instead of asking, "Where should I go?" start asking, "What does my nervous system need right now?" Maybe it needs quiet. Maybe it needs nature. Maybe it needs fewer decisions. Maybe it needs beauty without crowds. Maybe it needs long walks, slower mornings, predictable routines, or simply the absence of pressure. When you begin planning from this perspective, your choices often change dramatically. You may find yourself choosing smaller towns over major cities, longer stays over constant movement, scenic walks over packed itineraries, one beautiful destination instead of 3, more space, more rhythm, more simplicity. Interestingly, many people discover that these trips create deeper memories than their busiest vacations ever did. When the nervous system is regulated, we become more present. We notice more. We absorb more. We remember more. The experience becomes richer, not because more is happening, but because we are actually available to experience what is happening. As I've become more interested in nervous system health, I've noticed that the trips people remember most fondly are rarely the ones with the longest checklist of attractions. They are often the ones where they felt different inside themselves. The quiet village where they finally slept through the night, the lakeside town where their thoughts slowed down, the coastal walk that made them feel peaceful for the first time in months, the cafe where they sat for 2 hours without feeling rushed. These moments may seem small, but they often create the deepest form of restoration. For sensitive people, restoration is not a luxury. It is a biological need. We live in a world that constantly rewards stimulation, speed, and productivity. Travel can either reinforce that pattern or interrupt it. It can become another source of pressure, or it can become a tool for healing. The difference often comes down to one simple question. How do you want to feel when you come home? Not where do you want to go? Not what do you want to see? Not what photographs do you want to take? How do you want to feel? Calm, grounded, rested, clear-headed, present, energized? Because that answer may tell you far more about the right destination than any travel guide ever could. The travel mistake sensitive people keep making is not choosing the wrong country, the wrong hotel, or the wrong season. It is choosing travel based on excitement while secretly needing restoration. Once you understand that difference, travel becomes something very different. It stops being a performance. It stops being a checklist. It stops being something you have to recover from. Instead, it becomes a way of supporting the life and nervous system you are trying to build. And sometimes the most restorative destination is not the place everyone else is talking about. It is simply the place that allows you to feel like yourself again. As always, I'd love to hear from you. What has been the most restorative place you've ever visited? Not necessarily the most beautiful, not necessarily the most famous, but the place where your nervous system felt genuinely calm. Share it in the comments below. I read every comment, and many of your experiences inspire future videos for this community. And if you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing to Complex Brain Living. This channel is dedicated to helping women over 40 with ADHD and sensitive nervous systems build more energy, more calm, and a life that actually works with their brain instead of against it. We publish new videos every Wednesday and Sunday covering nervous system health, ADHD after 40, restorative travel, longevity, and practical ways to reduce overwhelm in a noisy world. Until next time, Take good care of your nervous system. It is carrying more than most people can see, and it deserves environments that help it thrive.